Well, Jason, I'm John. It's that time again. It's DevCentral Connects. This is our chance to connect with you, the community, the DevCentral community. And as always, on Thursdays at 12:30 Pacific, we do our live stream, right? So here we are again, and we live stream to YouTube and LinkedIn and Periscope. And so if you have any questions or comments or whatever, you can just type them in the comment section, and we will interact with you live right here on the show. And today is all about certification. And we had a certification program. I don't know. It's been a couple months ago, maybe 4 months. Man, it's crazy.
It's been a little minute.
Time just kind of flies by. But we've got some amazing guests on with us today who know everything there is to know about F5 certification. But before we get to that, first of all, Jason, how's it going, man? It's good to be back here in the studio.
It is, yeah. I missed last week when you were doing your security sidebar thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't get to watch it live, but I did watch it on Friday. It was very interesting stuff.
Replay that stuff, yeah. Is it real or is it fake? I don't know if you're being real with me right now or being fake with me right now. If it's on I meant to say this. If it's on Twitter, there's a real good chance that it's fake. So, that's kind of a good going in assumption on that. But hey, so today I thought, since we have the certification team on here and we're talking about certification exams, I got a little story that I wanted to tell. What do you think, Jason?
I like a story.
All right. So here's my story about taking a test. And this goes all the way back to college, freshman year of college. I had to take a test, and I was in this computer engineering, like coding class, and I had an 89 grade in the class, right? And the grading scale was 90% was an A, 90 and above was an A, 80% to 90% was a B, that kind of thing, or 80 to 89 was a B. So I get into the final exam, and the professor gets up there in the front of the class, and he said, "Hey, my computer just crashed last night." It's a true story. My computer crashed last night. I've had to just redo. I lost the whole exam. I had to redo the whole thing. And so I'm going to tell everyone in this class, I had to put together kind of this makeshift final exam. So the exam is optional. So whatever your grade is right now, if you like it, just keep it. You're good to go. But if you need to bump up a little bit, maybe you take the exam. And so I was at that 89. I was like, man, do I take it or not? Because I need that extra point to get the A in the class. So I walked down front because he said, "All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think through it, whatever." So I go down front. I told him, I said, "All right, man, here's the deal. I got an 89 in this class, and if you're going to curve it down and that's going to be an A, then I'm not taking the exam. But if it's going to stay at a 90, then I am going to take the exam." And so he told me, he said, "No, an 89 will be an A in this class because of where everyone else's grades were falling at the time, apparently." And so I was like, "Okay, then I'm not taking the exam. This is a no-brainer, right?" And so anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, and we get our final grades in the system and whatever, and I check, and sure enough, I've got a B in the class. And I was like, me and this guy are about to go at it. So anyway, so I go to talk to the guy. I was like, "Hey," I was going to tell him the whole thing, but it turns out that was his last semester teaching at the university, that like forever. So he was gone. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so unfair." And so anyway, so then it was just like, I don't know what else to do. I couldn't go to the department head and be like, "Hey, he told me I could get an A." Yeah, right. So anyway, so fast forward a few years later, this is my senior year now, the dude ends up coming back as a professor. And so I go into his office during his office hours, and I knock on his door, and I'm like, "Hey, you probably don't remember me, but here's the whole thing." I tell him the whole story. And he was like, "Wow." He said, "You know what? Just because you came back 4 years later or 3 years, whatever it was, I'm going to change your grade." So he goes in the system and changes my grade from a B to an A, and there we go. So anyway, so I got an A in the class.
Wasn't there a restaurant component to that story?
Yeah, it's a longer story. The quick restaurant component is I was working as a waiter, server, whatever, at a restaurant, and one of the assistant managers, whatever, at the restaurant was this guy's daughter. And I was talking about this story at one point at work, and she was like, "Wait a minute." She said, "I remember hearing about this," kind of a thing. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I said, "How do you know about it?" She said, "That's my dad." And I was like, "All right, I need his phone number immediately and his address. I'm going over to his house right now." Anyway, but yeah, in fact, she's the one that told me that, hey, he's going back as a professor like next semester or whatever it was. So yeah, good times, man. So there's a little test story for everyone. It's always a good time taking tests or not or whatever. But yeah, so today's all about certification.
In your case, not taking a test.
Not taking a test. So maybe that'll be one of our questions for Ken and Heidi today is how can I not take the test and still get certified? I bet you can't do that. So good to go, man. Well, hey, so I guess with that's my crazy little story. But with that, I think it's time to introduce the team from the certification.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Awesome. So Dr. Ken Salkow and Miss Heidi Schreifels, it's great to see you guys. Ken, you are the leader of this certification crew. So welcome back to DevCentral Connects.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm generally considered the idiot responsible.
That's right. As someone once said, one infamous leader back in the day said, "There they go. I must follow them, for I am their leader." So sometimes I wonder if that's kind of what goes on in the certification team. But good to go, man. And then what I like to call the rose among these thorns, Miss Heidi Schreifels. Heidi, welcome back, man. It's good to have you here.
It's great to be there. Yeah. And no, we're not changing your grade. And no, you cannot not take an exam and not get certified. So thanks for playing.
Well, hey,
great story for you, but not applicable for the cert program.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. So maybe it was Wayne Gretzky that said, I think it was Wayne, said you miss every shot you don't take or something to that effect, or you can't score if you don't shoot, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to ask.
Yeah.
So
never hurts to ask.
Never hurts to ask.
It only hurts when we get asked repeatedly.
Your repeated questions are causing me physical pain right now. It actually hurts. So good stuff, man.
And I would tell you a story about possibly changing grades through nefarious methods, but I cannot confirm nor deny that I ever was involved in any such activity. So that's not that.
Ken, how did you make 100% across the board in college? That's crazy.
And never showed up to class.
I've never seen you before.
Are you saying you have a little bit of Ferris Bueller in you there?
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot more difficult, I think, if I remember correctly, than the Ferris Bueller one. But whatever. I guess I had to learn social engineering at that point.
Yeah, that's right. Ferris was a great social engineer, no doubt about it. Awesome, man. That's like the little cartoon, little Bobby tables, we call them, drop grades, change, whatever on the database. So good to know.
I have candidates which are way smarter than Ferris Bueller, which is really the reason we do a lot of the things that we do. We have to. We've got to try to stay one step ahead.
Yeah.
Well, in line with Blood Sausage's comment, about changing grades, Sarah here, cheaters never prosper. One of the things I've seen on at least the F5 Facebook page is, this constant, join the group and then within like an hour, where are the dumps for XYZ test? And so, Sarah, absolutely, cheaters never prosper. What's your soapbox 30-second, rant for those who are looking for dumps?
I'll let Heidi address this one, and then I'll add color.
Nice.
So back in the day when Ken first spun up the program and we published our first exam and we had rolled out some social media, we had LinkedIn going and people were on Facebook. We were on a call together and we were kind of watching some stuff happening and on social media, and we were super excited about it. And one of the first posts ever was, "Hey, I'm going to take the first F5 certification exam. Does anyone know where I can get an exam dump?" And we both just kind of chuckled and said, "Let's see what happens." And Ken and I, we didn't have to say a word. It was our community, our other candidates who were like, "Hey, you should be kicked out of the program. Like, that's not how we do things. The F5 certification is worthwhile and it's valid and we have integrity. And if you try to cheat, you're just shortcutting the system and you're not going to be able to get certified." And I mean, just pounced. And then that person went away. But I would say, for anyone who's contemplating the idea of cheating, shortcutting, finding a dump you're not going to find our exams right now. Well, we can say that. We can confidently say that. And if you pursue that, Ken gets a lot of joy out of pursuing people who cheat. And taking that to the highest level of prosecution that we have available to us. It's a lot of fun.
I see Ken. I see you in the Taken character, where instead of taking their daughter, they've taken your exam.
That's right. I know you. I will find you, and I will kill you. And Heidi will laugh as she watches me do all that.
Yeah. So what many people may not know is that I actually was certified as a computer forensics examiner as well as an ethical hacker at one time. I am not without my skills. But really, the whole thing about the cheating thing is, and I'm sure there's plenty of the community out there that's hadn't done this. They're working a job. They may have gotten that job because they had a certification in something or another, and suddenly a new employee shows up, has the exact same certifications, is getting paid the exact same thing as them, and they're idiots because they chose to cheat on the exam. And that's frustrating. That's one of the things that I really, really did not want to happen with our program. Is I really wanted our certifications to have value and aid employers in hiring people that could actually do the job. So, given my security background, I'm pretty good at making sure that we make decisions about how we deliver our exams and what we do about that, so we don't have those security risks. And that goes right to, one of the big questions we've had over the last few months is why don't we do online delivery of exams? Mm-hmm. And it's simple. It's not secure. The software, online proctored software has gotten really good at determining if someone who's taking the exam is cheating. But going back to Heidi's comment, the people who take F5 exams are not your average, everyday, ordinary technology novices. Most of them are hackers in the truest sense, right? They play with the technology to figure out how it works. And they're not even being malicious about it, but they will look to see if they can find a way to get around all those things, just, to see if you can. That's the people we deal with on a daily basis. So those systems are great at preventing someone from cheating while they're taking the exam, but I can personally think of 5 ways that I can steal the exam during that process and then publish it out on the internet, and then it has no value whatsoever to anybody.
Yeah.
And just to tag on to that, we're working to build our program. We want it to be huge, but we want it to still have all the value that it does to all of our candidates. But if you all did the math, those of you who are thinking about stealing items, cheating, whatever it might be, and you want to turn around and resell them, your market isn't that big. I don't know how much you make, but I have a feeling that your salary is probably a lot more than you're going to make off of an individual exam, an F5 certified exam that gets sold. So just think about it. Give it a lot of thought. And also, there are a couple comments in the feed. We do have an awesome community, and people, our candidates, the integrity of our exams and that value of that certification is the most important thing to them. So those people who take shortcuts, they're not going to tolerate that. And our best, the way we find out that there might be something exposed is through our candidates who are sharing that information with us because they've heard of something, or they've made us aware of it. Yep. And then can go straight to work.
And then, I was going to say, if you're going to try to steal this and do a dump and all that, and you're going to be the one that's going to go sell it, to your point, Heidi, it's like your salary is probably worth a lot more than what you would ever make on that. And when you go possibly sell it, you'd have to find some kind of a buyer on the other end or a receiver on the other end. And how do you know that person's not going to be the one that's like, hey, I'm about to turn you in, dude? Or how do you know that's not, Ken Salcow over there is like, tester 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of dude, right? So it's not worth it. Not worth it at the end.
Nope. And it's also something that, again, I mean, if you're willing to trade your salary, because that's what we're going to go after, is that livelihood and your job for exposing our exams that take about a year to make. And they are not, they're expensive to make, and they require a lot of time from subject matter experts or other candidates. So yeah, just don't do it. Find another certification.
Right.
You know, Heidi, on that note, on making certification tests, you think about an individual question, and I guess the best analogy I can use is how do you frame that question so that all assumptions are taken away, and you've given them everything they need to arrive at the right answer. And I look at like those Facebook quizzes where they give you like, you know, some ridiculous 2 people walk down to the river, they see X number of animals, you know, how many legs are on the shore, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, they in their mind have a right answer to those, but almost every single one of them has so many holes that there could be 6 different correct answers.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, oh, you're wrong. And it's like, well, actually, no, I'm not wrong. You know, not that I'm, you know, bent out of shape about any of those.
Jason got one wrong on Facebook the other day, right?
No.
There's so many holes in them, and so it takes time to build a good question.
It does.
Well, yeah, every time we have one of those, and I call them trainings because that's really what they are. They're trying to teach a behavior internal within F5 that are like, you know, making sure that we're compliant or we're following security. Those are more to teach, but Ken always gets a message from me saying, please let us write these questions so that there is no confusion, that there is a single correct answer, that we're not including they didn't, therefore this is not happening, all of the above, like all of the mistakes that get made that will confuse a candidate taking an exam. So as a foundation, our technology is complicated enough as it is, right? We don't want to overcomplicate the exam by making the questions complicated. We'll leave that to the technology.
Right.
So we work with subject matter experts. We work with our candidates. They volunteer or we recruit them to help develop the items, the questions. And we work with a company called Alpine Testing, and they've defined really what it is to, or the best possible way to write items in a structure that presents a single idea, presents a single question, presents a single correct answer, or if it is a choose two correct answers, and all of the other incorrect answers are plausible but incorrect. We train our writers how to do that. So those subject matter experts who are helping us develop all the items, they bring in their vast technical knowledge, and a lot of them are already good writers just because that's how they think and they operate. But we go through a rigorous process of training how to write properly written items. We do review within that group. We make sure that the question is clear and concise. Our exams are only presented in English, American English. So having shorter sentences, having, again, a single idea, a single concept, having language that gets used repeatedly, a format that gets used repeatedly, so that we're giving our candidates every opportunity to answer the question correctly if they know the answer. If they don't, we also don't want to give them any hints or leading information that will present to them the right answer. So training up front, a first draft that we edit and review. We do a congruency and accuracy review with our other subject matter experts, and we look for mutual agreement from everyone in the room, which is there's anywhere between 6 and 12 of us at any given time who are saying, yep, this is appropriate for this exam, this is appropriate for this candidate, and their expected skill set, experience, knowledge level, and it comes across clearly. There's no confusion. We're not tricking them in any way. And that's on the first day of any exam development workshop. Somebody will jokingly say, oh yeah, that's a really tricky question. I'm like, no, we don't want to trick people. We are not in the business of tricking people. We are in the business of testing them on their knowledge and their skills and their ability. That's it. So let's present that information in the clearest possible way. And then, just making sure that the items are as properly written as possible. We're not perfect, but we do our best and we check back. We also then put the item into a beta exam that gets tested. And if we find out that item, that our candidates who are taking that exam give us feedback and say, this question was ambiguous, it was confusing, there are 2 correct answers, or, so those are the comments that we get, and I read them all. I like the ones that say, hi, Heidi, which, by the way, Bill Church, hello.
Shout out. Love it.
We also look at data and statistics, and all of the information that we get from the beta exam data tells us which items are performing how we want them to, and that are best testing our candidates, so that those are the ones that we pick and select and put on the final version of the exam that scored that count toward a candidate certification.
Yeah.
Ken, how was that? Did I leave anything out?
No, I was just going to say, to summarize that, try saying beta data 7 times fast. B, just for everybody out there, if you object to a question, just realize that I didn't just make it up on the spot and throw it on the exam, and neither did Heidi. There's actually a process that we went through to put that on there. And then C, the last thing is, back to your specific question about, how we make these questions and make sure we only have the data that's in there. If you are really good, really knowledgeable, really competent, you have a tendency to put information into the question that we did not put in the question. Don't do that.
Don't do that. It will only hurt you.
Read the question and read exactly what the question is. And we give you everything you need to answer that question. Don't make it more difficult than it has to be. The last part is that once you go through this training, if you're part of any of these workshops, as Heidi said, it will ruin every assessment you ever take. There are people at Alpine who can sit down and take exams that they know nothing about, and they can pass them based simply on poorly written questions and the indicators that are in that question telling them what the right answer is. It's scary.
Wow.
And any of our candidates who are interested in being involved in that process, highly encourage it. We absolutely welcome you to do that. Let us know. Let me know. We're always looking at volunteers, and I'm recognizing some names in the chat feed of people who have, and that's awesome. Like we absolutely appreciate that. And our exams are better because of it. We've got it down to a pretty good science now.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the chat, let's take a break. We're going to get into certification paths here in a minute, but let's talk to the community here for a few minutes. Hi, Heidi and Ken and the DevCentral guys from Santiago 774.
Santiago.
Santiago.
Network experts, F5 is the most valuable certification because of integrity.
Thank you.
Kudos to the two of you.
That's right. That's right.
Hello, what do you think about CVT's F5 lesson? So I'm guessing that's on university. Useful for F5 certified. My take on that would be if there's information out there for you to be able to learn the basics of F5 configurations, those are helpful to being able to address, the questions that might be addressed on a particular exam. Maybe not the breadth of exams, but
I think what they're referring to is there is a course, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who does it, but it's on CVT Nuggets, and it's an independent course. We have nothing to do with it. But I have heard a number of people say that really helped them prepare, especially for the lower level exams. So we do rely on people candidates to submit content. We really are trying to develop a community. So when people do things like that, we ask a few things. Try not using F5 trademarks in an inappropriate way. That's one that I get angry calls from our legal team about. So I would appreciate if you didn't do that. But if you got content and you've got something to share, we value that. Hit us up on the LinkedIn group or let us know if there's stuff that you want to share. So
the study guides are actually prepared by our candidates. Our team, we're so close to doing the exam development that there really is a conflict of interest in creating direct study guides to help prepare for an exam. So that candidates have done that, or they've done their own process on how to prepare for the exam, pulled that together, and then we've aligned them with the folks who can make that available. They're not perfect. We absolutely 100% know that, and we would like for there to be more information, but our team is small, and having other people contribute to it ends up, the product ends up better. You get more diverse points of view that are contributing to those study materials that will help you prepare for your exam. That was one thing I forgot to mention. Our group of subject matter experts who come in and help develop the exams are from all over the globe. They are our partners, our customers, F5 people. They are highly experienced and have lots of expertise, and some that are brand new, so that we're getting that kind of beautiful cross-section of ideas, opinions, questions, things to put into the exam. And that at the end of the process, we end up with a really solid exam.
And back to the prep materials, Raphael, your comment about prep materials, we're aware. My team is small, and I'm the most technically astute, the only former F5 engineer on the team. And frankly, I haven't been an engineer for a few years. So we just don't have the expertise to write the materials. And that's one of the reasons why we try to develop this community and get those different perspectives, those different viewpoints and that information in there. We simply don't have it. It is something I continue to address, but don't forget there are some resources out there. We have the exam blueprints, which will tell you in at least a high level what kind of knowledge we expect you to have. Don't pass up the F5 operations guides that are on askf5.com. If you're even just starting out with the 101 or 201 exam, there's a TMOS operations guide out there that is fantastic. And they also have them for big IP LTM, DNS, ASM, APM, even stuff that we don't have specific exams addressed to. Those operation guides are out there. They're free, and they are excellent. And those are always updated because they're written by internal F5 resources.
Yeah, and I'd say the Eric Mitchell study guides are really good. I think it's Philip Johnson has a PMOS administration book as well, and
Stephen, Philip and Stephen.
Yes,
Stephen Johnson.
Yep. Yes, and also the agility certification labs that are out on Cloud Docs are also very good. You can set up your own environment. It kind of walks you through building that expertise.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I might mention is we get a lot of questions about the TMOS version of the exam, and the study guides or the book are old. So are they even going to provide any sort of useful knowledge? Absolutely they are. We do not write our exams specific to a TMOS version because it timestamps it the minute that you write that question and almost becomes irrelevant and or wrong. So especially with the 101 and the 201, that application delivery fundamentals, TMOS administration, those resources are going to absolutely help and prepare you. I can talk about the blueprint very quickly about how to utilize that when you're preparing for your exam. Really looking at it as a syllabus that you get your first day at university. John's might have helped you. But the professor gives it to you and says, here's what's going to be on the final. You are welcome to walk away right now and come back and take it at the end of the semester. Or you can show up to my lectures, you can read the additional supplemental reading that's available, you can form a study group with your buddies, you can do all sorts of other things to prepare for the exam. But this is what's going to be on the exam. I recommend candidates who are new to it, go through, take that blueprint, circle what you feel like you need to brush up on, highlight what you absolutely don't know, and skim over what you're confident in, and really focus on those areas. Each exam has 80 questions in them, at least for the 100 through the 300 level exams. So the number of items per section has to be divided out. And if you look at the number of objectives, I'm not saying how they're divided out equally or by percentage, but really look at what you already are confident in and focus on the stuff that you need to brush up on.
Yeah. Well, when I was going through the certification process, I finished the 101, the 201, 301A and B, and the 302. And I was going to do the cloud certification to get that 400 level so that I recertified everything, but I didn't take it in time. And so now I got to start over. But when I go through the blueprints, I would just go through all the objectives. And there's some that are, they're crossover between sections. And I would map all of that stuff to build out a study plan for each one. Because, even though I've been in the industry a really long time, the 101 stuff, I haven't really dealt with a whole lot of that in years. And so I had to go back and brush up on OSPF and RIP and, all those kinds of things. And the 201 and the 301 stuff was still pretty cemented in my brain. So I didn't really have to study a whole lot for those tests. But the 302, the DNS one, it's been years since I've been operationally responsible for DNS of any kind. And so when I went through that one, that one took some time to get comfortable to go take that test.
Yeah.
And I'll give people a hint. If you look at the blueprint and you see a section and you think that it's vague and you don't understand what we're asking for, you're not ready for the test. It's pretty simple. If you know what you're talking about and what you're doing, if you spend that time researching that topic, when you look at that, you'll have an idea of what we're asking for.
Yeah, it's a good kind of check to see, are you ready or not? Good deal. Well, hey, one thing I thought would be kind of cool is we talk about these exams, we talk about the path. You've mentioned the 101 or the 201 or the 301 or the 1801 or the 3801. I don't even know, man. Maybe there's some people that don't understand it all. So I thought it would be cool to show, like, there's a visual that we can look at that maps this out. Is that right, Dr. Ken?
Yes, there is. If you want to throw that up on the screen, I can certainly show people. It's available on f5.com under services, certification. It's about halfway down the page. And it's just this really great graphic that our marketing team helped us put together. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is it is actually very interactive. So it starts out just talking about the certification requirements, the various tracks, but you can actually click on each one of these and it will talk about that specific exam. And it will send you off to Ask F5 where there's the exam blueprints available to look at to understand the exam better. And it builds. So, the certified administrator is the first level exam for most technical folks. It requires the 101 and 201 exam. If you guys want to know my biggest pet peeve, there is no such thing as a 101 certification. Okay.
That's good to know, Dr. Ken.
That's a test.
So what is 101? That's like you're getting in the, I don't know.
It's an exam.
Yeah.
So it's in order to achieve our first certification, you have to take 2 exams. You can't take the 201 until you pass the 101. The 101 is really, it's application delivery fundamentals. And I know Jason said, sometimes it's stuff we haven't necessarily dealt with on a day-to-day basis all the time. But it's kind of the basic stuff. And to be honest, I'll tell you, I can still pass the 101 exam. So you shouldn't be too afraid of it, because if I can still pass it.
Nice.
But to be fair, I was a network engineer for almost 30 years. So it's not like I don't know my TCP. I can still kind of do that stuff, but it is the very fundamentals.
Okay.
Well, like Jason was saying too, he said, that he felt a little bit more comfortable in that 300 level exams. My advice to you is if you spend most of your time at the specialist level, at the LTM specialist or ASM and APM, and you're starting and you're taking the 101, do not overthink it. As Ken said, do not add information into the question, the item that's not there. Really take a step back, think of yourself as a very beginner and where you were then, and just don't overthink things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, during the testing at all of them, I struggle with that at times because, I know that that this is probably not a real scenario, and because there would be more information that would prove that what they're actually going after is not quite what it would end up being. but it's like, from what was presented, this is the answer, even though I know it's not the answer.
It's not the answer if there was more information, which there isn't, so it is the answer.
True, yes.
There you go.
Yes, I should clarify that. That's correct.
Nice.
And before we dig too much more into this graph, there was a comment up here when we were talking about materials specifically tailored towards the certification. And my take on that is, if I were building tests, and I'm going to say my piece, and then I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but if I'm building tests, I don't really want to build a test for people to pass a test. I want to build a test that tests that they have the knowledge that they're being tested on. And so if I'm giving materials specific only to the test, then that's preparing them to pass tests, not to be, Ken, what you talked about when we were discussing this show, it's like the minimally qualified candidate. And it's like, we want to know that you have the breadth of expertise for doing this stuff, but we don't want you to only know how to do this stuff.
And I'll jump on this. So there has always intentionally been some a firewall or a barrier between training and certification, because in our old program and a lot of programs out in the industry, they build the tests specifically from the training material. And that is where you end up with, you're not testing people on their knowledge anymore. You're testing them on how well they studied your training material. And you're testing them on how well they remember what you told them in training. That's not a test of knowledge. The second thing is that our training team is designed to teach people how to use F5 products. And if you look at the exam blueprints in our program, we're testing for a role. And that role often includes other stuff that we do not teach. We're not going to teach, we don't have a 101 class. We don't even have a class that corresponds to the 101 exam because it's fundamentals. This is TCP/IP, folks. This is the OSI model. There are a million manuals out there that you can get, or books you can read, or courses you can take. I mean, I probably still have TCP/IP illustrated back on my shelf back there, right, from days gone by. And it's
Ken, I don't know. I'm trying to look.
Right next to the Stephen King anthology.
Yeah. So, but there's plenty of books out there that do that. F5 is not going to teach you that. In fact, if you try to take one of our first courses, there are prerequisites that they say you need to have before you even come. And one of them is you have to know TCP/IP. We're testing it. We're not going to teach it. And then the third component, which is where this really starts to bother me a little bit, is when those programs are designed where they create a boot camp or they create that material that specifically, people go through that process and then they expect to take an exam and pass it. And I hate to tell you, but that's not going to happen with our exams, because our exams are designed so that you have to have a certain level of competency. You have to actually know not just the material, but how to apply it in the real world in order to pass the exam. That's not something you can teach because it's idiosyncratic to every person. Jason, I've known you for a long time. I've always respected you. You're one of those people that would pick up those things quick. I mean, you can read something and you can internalize it and you can apply it to the other things you know, and you can do that really quick. Not everybody's like that. Sometimes you got to just work at it and practice it and go through it multiple times before it clicks in your head until you really get it. I remember when I was learning subnetting way too long ago. And I was taking a class on it and I was not getting it. And it was day 3 and I'm driving home and suddenly in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. It's just subnet masks are just a binary ANDing process. I know binary, I know and it took me a while to internalize what I was being taught before I could fit it within the framework that was in my head. You can't teach that. It's different for everybody. We test for it. We can't train for it. So,
yeah, not to nerd out on subnetting, but what you said is absolutely true. I wish that everybody taught subnetting in binary or hex, because logical masking makes so much more sense than trying to do dotted decimal anything with subnet masks. It's like translate it after the fact, but if you learn masking in binary or hex, way easier. to build that muscle memory of how it works.
Yeah.
I was just saying that the other day at a party.
I mean,
All of that is all untrue. Every bit of that statement. No party.
that's what we lead with. That's our party trick, right, Heidi? It's like, hey, who wants to subnet mask?
Yeah.
Binary, hexadecimal, and decimal walked into the bar.
Wear a mask.
Stop me if you've heard this one. Yeah. Good to go, man.
The last thing I did want to say about that is we are working on some things internally to better align. I think we've become too divergent from our training. And for those who don't know, we were actually not in the exact same group at F5 as training for a number of years. And we are actually back in the same group with training. And there are some things that we are working on, specifically, hopefully towards digital education and aligning the certifications and specific content much better. So it's something we are working on, given those caveats I gave you already.
Well, and knowing that, our exam blueprints are developed by subject matter experts, other people just like you, other candidates who've said, this is what somebody should be able to do in this role. These are the tasks they should be able to do on their own. I mean, I think that even if you're not getting certified or you're looking to kind of advance your career, those are all great places to start with. Gosh, what do I need to gain experience and knowledge and brush up my skill set on or refresh it? So that's the material from the blueprints. We're hoping that in combination with who the minimally qualified candidate really is defined to be can influence some of the training, because the approach that we take is not, again, Ken or me sitting in a room saying, oh, how evil do we want to be and what do we want to test these people on? No, it's what should they be able to do? And so we're doing that work and investing in the time and effort into scoping that out so that it applies to the certification, but it also would make you a very competent big IP LTM specialist if that's the certification that you achieve.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. We had a question here from LinkedIn. So this is from Shams Jawade, I'm guessing, and asking, if there's going to be a practical lab exam in the future.
So first of all, I'd like to point out that I believe there's a request in there for a lightboard session for 301B. So I think you skipped right over that. I think that was a request.
A 5-minute lightboard. You'll be ready for 301B.
Well, I thought I would bring taskers to you first.
Right. Let's give the work to Ken and Heidi.
So there, this could get really nerdy. I'm still a nerd. I just changed what I'm nerdy about. And this could get really nerdy, but I have some issues with practical lab exams for a variety of reasons. First of all, creating a lab exam and delivering it in a fashion that meets all those security requirements is a lot more difficult than you might think. It's very hard to do. The second part is, how do you score a lab exam? And a lot of lab exams are scored very subjectively. So I mentioned that I was a computer forensics examiner, certified forensics examiner at one time. I actually really enjoyed their process. But they sent you a floppy disk and you had to run it through a forensic analysis and write a report. You sent that report in, and then there was a committee of 3 people who read that report and graded it. Well, that's not very objective. It's very subjective. And anybody who's written a dissertation knows what how difficult it is to please a dissertation committee of 3 people. It's almost impossible, and nobody agrees on anything. I don't really like that subjective nature. Now, we have talked and tried to explore how we might be able to use iHealth as a mechanism for helping to automate and score a practical exam that was delivered in some sort of virtual environment. So we keep looking at what technology's out there and whether it's applicable. But at the end of the day, and Heidi will know this, there is nothing that you can't test effectively with a properly written multiple choice question. So it's a lot easier to do and a whole lot less costly. What's that?
I might have to stew on that. I'm going to stew on that, counselor.
Right.
We'll set up a time to talk to our psychometrician about that.
So So promotion for the future, we're going to have Dr. Ken and Heidi back a couple months from now, and we're going to go, the final step in the certification journey, and we're going to talk to the psychometrician about actually the development of tests themselves and go into the deep science of all that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Specific to the question from Shams on the light boards for 301B, troubleshooting stuff, that might be a little bit challenging. We probably do specific scenarios. But yeah, the 301B is no joke. If you don't know TCP dump well, if you don't know the output of a lot of show commands well, you will run out of time on that test. There's just too much to cover to not be able to resolve information into an answer quickly. So definitely.
And that actually, that is role specific, because what's interesting is we have some candidates who their whole job is support and their whole job is troubleshooting. I have witnessed these people sail through that exam very quickly because they have that skill built in to hone in on the question, pick out what they need, and answer it. If that is not your role, then yes, time management will be very important in the 301B exam. And it's and this actually leads to, Ken, you were going to talk about the reason there are 2 exams for the LTM specialist.
Yeah, why do you make me take 2 exams for LTM?
Maybe we could pull the chart back up really quick too as well.
Why do I have to take 2?
So the simple answer is because I'm actually a very nice person. And
wow, it's totally the opposite from what we thought. We thought you were.
I know. Surprise.
Yeah. Wow.
A money grabbing evil person.
Yeah. What it really is that, as Heidi said, we go through a very rigorous psychometric process to evaluate, to do job task analysis, to figure out what knowledge is required to do the job as we've defined. And obviously, Big IP LTM does a lot of stuff. So what happened is we started with it as one exam, and we ended up with a blueprint that was, I think, this big. And basically what it was going to happen is we could have left that as a single exam. It just would have been like a 6-hour exam. It would have cost a lot of money to take, and it would have been long. And going back to the science of psychometrics, long is not good. It takes energy to use your brain. There's a lot of cognitive load, especially when we're asking the types of questions we're asking. We can't expect someone to take a 6-hour exam and actually still perform at the level that we're trying to measure. So what we did is we basically tried to create smaller digestible chunks of that 301 exam, and that became A and B. By happenstance, they actually broke almost perfectly even into kind of a setup and architect versus a troubleshoot and maintain. That's how we got the 2 exams as they are.
So I know you said you have to have the 101 and 201 to be F5 certified. And so you would consider yourself a certified administrator if you pass the 101 and the 201. Is that right?
Correct.
And then on the 300 level, do you have to pass all those things in order to consider yourself a certified technical specialist, or only one of them, or what?
No. So if you look in here and you click on certified technical specialist, you see that there's 4 different tracks. There was one for LTM, one for DNS, one for ASM, and one for APM. And it lists the specific requirements. So if you wanted to be the certified technical specialist for LTM, right here, you have to take exam 101, 201, 301A, and 301B. But for Big IP DNS, it's 101 and 201 to become an FI certified administrator. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take the 302 exam for the Big IP DNS. And then you'd be a certified technical specialist in Big IP DNS.
I see.
And as far as the journey itself, it's like, you can't just go take a 302, right? Each level unlocks the next level, right? So when you take a 101, it unlocks the 201. When you take and pass the 101, it unlocks the 201.
Thank you.
And then you unlock the 201, or when you take and pass it, then it unlocks all the 300 levels, 301A, and then the other ones, right?
Well, so I'm just going to clarify a little bit. When you achieve the certified administrator, it allows you to take a 300 level exam.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not for B, right? So B requires the
301.
A, right?
Right. 301B, you have to pass 301A. But the reason I point that out is the 201 exam or the 101 exam technically are not prerequisites for 300 exams. It's the certified administrator certification that's a prerequisite for a 300 level exam. So
how is that different then? I mean, it's when you pass the exam, then you are certified. Is that right? Or
that is true. But when you
Okay.
go in and look at your certification profile, exam results are also good for 2 years as well, and certifications are good for 2 years.
Okay.
So you can take the 101 exam, and you have up to 2 years before you have to take the 201 exam or pass the 201 exam. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait more than 2 years, you'd have to take the 101 exam over again. Now, the only way to update your exam results is to take the exam again and pass it. Okay.
Okay.
However, certifications can actually be extended. So let's say you get your certified administrator, you have that, you now have 2 years to take one of the 300 level exams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
If you take one of those, let's say you take the 302 exam and pass it, become a CTS and Big IP DNS, it will automatically extend the validity of your certified administrator to be synchronous with that new certification.
Oh, gotcha.
So I should have just gone and taken the APM test.
Yeah,
instead
probably.
of not taking the 402.
Probably.
Curses.
See, this is why we say these things. This is why we connect.
This is why we bring you guys on, because you're
Well,
like blowing my mind here.
The question too about the Big IP DNS certification, if that will be refreshed if somebody passes the 401 exam. If somebody achieves the security solution expert level, will that refresh their Big IP DNS certification? It will not. It is no longer a prerequisite for that certification, so it does not refresh it. So this interactive little map here is very, very useful, very helpful. And also, if you have any questions that we're not able to get to, send something in LinkedIn, because we'll definitely respond to that.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful, Heidi, because I know, like Dr. Ken, when you were clicking on the 401 and the 402, well, first of all, in order to take the 401, like you have selected there, do you have to have passed the 301A and B and the 303 and the 304 before you get to the 401?
Yes, because you have to be a FICTS and LTM, ASM, and APM before you're eligible for the 401 exam.
Okay.
And if you pass the 401 exam, it will renew or extend every underlying certification.
Okay.
So
But
then you're
Heidi's,
only having to refresh or recertify or on 401 every 2 years at that point, right?
yeah.
At that point, you would be every 2 years you would renew on the solution expert for security by taking exam 401, and as long as you pass that, it would continue. You would continue to maintain all 3 CTS prerequisite CTS certifications, as well as the FICA underneath it.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing here. If you click 301A and B, you achieve this, it's going to renew the certified administrator. Now I'm going to take the 302. If I pass that and achieve that certification, the LTM cert's not a prerequisite for this.
That's right.
It's not going to get renewed. It's going to renew the F5 administrator, but not your LTM certification. You'd have to go to a higher level to do that. Like,
And can you click on the perfect? Thanks.
Yep.
To show what it refreshes, as well as what the prerequisites are, what certifications are prerequisites in order to sit for the 402 cloud exam.
Yeah, that's the one I didn't take, but should have last summer.
So I guess it's that's really helpful to see that interaction, because if you take the 401, you're not recertified for all of the 300 level ones.
Nope.
And likewise, if you only take the 402, you're not recertified for all of them. But if you take both the 401 and the 402, then you're fully recertified on all the 300 levels. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
You would be.
And
Yeah,
again, all of these decisions were made by your peers, by our candidates. These were, Ken has mentioned before many times how, we don't want to retest something we've already tested you on in a previous exam. Why waste the why waste the time, your time, or the question by re-asking that? So that thinking about that when you're recertifying or getting a higher level certification to maintain your lower level certs, all good. But so this is a helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
So we got another couple questions here. From Anand. Is 101 specific to network fundamental or TCP/IP, or includes F5 based knowledge bases?
Go ahead, Heidi.
Yes. Yes. It is baseline knowledge. It is about application delivery networking. We do not go deep on any one of the things that you have mentioned, Anand. It is intro.
Mm-hmm.
So there is
a foundation you should have.
Yeah. Right. And there is some base level F5 knowledge requirements. It's listed in the blueprint. And there's probably more today in the current version of 101 than there was in the very first version of the 101. That exam's been refreshed multiple times, so it has evolved. And as Heidi said, every time we go through this process, we bring in SMEs, we bring in people, and we ask them, has the knowledge requirements changed? What do we need to do differently? How do we do this and make it still applicable today? So these things do change to some degree, but 101 is predominantly networking fundamentals, TCP/IP, some pretty basic stuff. I don't think we make anybody recalculate subnets in binary hex or anything. So.
Well, I'm going to throw you a curveball here, because we've been talking all about big IP, but we got a question from Dean about any plans on adding Nginx technologies into the F5 certification paths.
Absolutely, there's been plans for it since the day that the announcement went out. The challenge is actually getting it done. So we have plans. We've actually done some workshops to design what that might look like. And now we just got to get support for actually going forward and doing it. As I said, we have a small team. Heidi mentioned how long it takes to develop these exams. So at the moment anyway, there's a lot of choices that need to be made. And we haven't got as much commitment to making those Nginx certs happen. But I continue to have those conversations, and there are some things that I have planned that I can't necessarily talk about at the moment.
And each exam, there's a good carrot.
That's classified.
That's right.
Each exam requires the input from up to 50 subject matter experts doing various things throughout the life cycle of the exam development. And that doesn't factor in beta exam participants. That factors in the people who are contributing directly to what should be on the exam. Additionally, we draft somewhere around between 250 to 300 items for each exam. So we need enough subject matter experts in Nginx and enough content to develop that number of items to create a valid certification or a valid exam that would then result in a certification. But we would love to be able to do that, and that is our intent.
Yeah, that's good to know.
It sounds like a sprint for the Nginx conference.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Hey, so I know. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Ken.
I was going to say, I see another question about changing the scoring for the 301B exam. And I don't want to get into it in detail, because actually I think that's a great question for the next session when we bring the psychometrician in. But what Heidi was talking about as part of that exam development process, every time we do an exam, we go through an entire scoring thing, a process that allows us to determine what that score is. It's not an arbitrary number. I don't just make these numbers up. We talked in the pre-show stuff about myths about certification, and no, we do not just make up the scoring percentages. There's actually a rigorous process behind that.
With data.
there are some companies that will just say it's 70%, and then they just that's what they do. The score is specifically set to that version of the exam. That's actually one of the reasons we moved to scaled scoring, is because every time we came out with a new version of exam, the percentage changed, and it was confusing people. So now we've flattened that, so I can just say it's 245 to pass the exam.
Why is it 245, Ken? What is this?
245.
The number 245.
Nice.
It's my favorite number.
Nice. Well, it's a great number.
Yep.
It's a great number.
The hex F5, right?
There you go. I knew I'd give them enough time to do it.
Well, Jason has a binary and hexadecimal brain, so
That's right.
good to go. David.
So yeah, we're right up on time. David Johansson, he wants more exams. So
Hop on that, Heidi. Hop on
David,
it.
a glutton
he
for
wants,
punishment.
he needs.
So I
It's
think I'm going
because-
to volunteer there to help out with them.
It's because they're so much fun. Awesome, man. Hey, so I know we're almost out of time here. The time just goes by so fast when you're having fun and when you're hanging with Dr. Ken and Miss Heidi. But yeah, I know we'll do this again here in the coming weeks. We'll get the psychometrician involved. We'll talk about the strategy behind the questions or the scoring or all that stuff, right? And learn all the science behind it all.
That's going to be super interesting.
Yeah,
It is. It's really, really cool. I want to thank you guys. I also want to give out a shout out to Pasilva for his intros to DevCentral Connects. I love you, man. Keep it up.
Pasilva is one of a kind, man. We love that guy. Yeah, he intros the DevCentral Connect show every week on social, and man, there's no one like.
Guys, I got a funny story about that. My neighbor down the street, not even in the industry, and he hits me up. He texts me. He's like, "Who's that guy that does your intros? I love that guy." It's like I don't know anything about what any of you guys are talking about, but that just like brings me in.
That's right. I love it. Well, good stuff, man. No, so yeah, thanks for that shout out, and so to everybody who has participated today, it's good to connect, and we'll keep doing these.
Yep. So thanks, Ken. Thanks, Heidi. We'll see you again real soon.
Sounds good.
Right,
Take
thank
care.
you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right,
Well, that was awesome, man.
dude. Yeah, we're out of time. We're already 2 minutes over.
2 minutes over. We owe everybody 2 more minutes. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll give it back to you next Thursday because we're only going 30.
That's right. Yeah.
So-
So you have your show, the You Want Answers.
That's right. In fact, Heidi, I need to bring Heidi back on here. I need some more questions that have been retired because I'm running out.
Thing.
So
Super popular. So it's really cool. I know people have really enjoyed that, where you go through a question and say, hey, this is how I would kind of think through the answers and answer the question.
Yep.
So yeah, very helpful. Very helpful.
Yep.
Awesome, man.
all right, everybody. Well, yeah, we got Leslie. We love Pasilva, absolutely, and Pasilva himself.
Love back to you.
Love
and
back
Heidi.
to you. Yep.
Love it. Love
Tony, I even saw some love for you up there earlier. I didn't get it up on stage. It was
it.
like, I
Tony
love-
or
No, you, man.
Oh, me? Oh,
you got
okay,
some
fantastic.
Wagnon love.
There's a lot of Wagnon.
Hats off to Wagnon, who is explaining in a very best way to understand. So,
Hey,
You know?
network experts. Now we know why they call you an expert.
all I'm saying is
that's an
there's a lot of love going on around here.
I feel a lot of love, man. I think that was a line from the movie
Cars.
Cars. Yeah,
That's right.
There's just a lot of love. Yeah, good
Don't
stuff.
embarrass me, Fillmore.
Awesome, man. Well, speaking of love, we love the DevCentral community, hanging out with all of you and connecting every Thursday. And I mean, on DevCentral every day. And then we'll keep bringing these Lightboard lessons. We'll keep doing the live stream and just hanging out together. So that's what community is all about. So,
That's right.
So thanks for being here.
And we'll see you 2 weeks from today
That's
on
right.
2:30, actually 12:30 Pacific,
12:30
2:30 Central. And I'll see you 12:30 Pacific next Thursday.
That's right.
You want answers. Thanks
We
for
do
joining
want
us.
answers. All right.